Of course, it's your boy Doug. May 13th. It's a Monday morning, and I'm out here grinding. Taking you guys with me to a town called Clarkesville to look at a Maytag dryer. We're going to see what's going on with it. She said it's not drying the clothes, but she says it feels warm, so therefore it may or may not be the heating element. So a lot of times when it takes too long to dry your clothes, it's because your exhaust in the wall, the little hose that you connect to the wall in your house, is clogged. So you may be having a clogged issue. She may have to go out there and have a dry duct cleaning service done. So I'm gonna let you guys ride with me. Off to Clarksville we go. 60 game.
Fox News Alert our continuing coverage. He was so shady, Michael Cohen secretly recorded his client, Donald Trump. And he's already been convicted of lying to Congress and done prison. Yet the notorious Michael Dean Cohen is the prosecution's star witness in the New York versus Trump trial. Cohen used to be Trump's lawyer. He was so shady, Michael Cohen secretly recorded his client, Donald Trump, and he's already been convicted of lying to Congress and done prison. Yet the notorious Michael Dean Cohen is the prosecution's star witness in the New York versus Trump trial. Cohen used to be Trump's lawyer and personal fixer, as he was called. Legal experts say his testimony could make or break this case. I'm Harris Faulkner. You are in the Faulkner Focus. Michael Cohen says he was directed to falsify business records in order to conceal payments to sex film worker Stormy Daniels ahead of the 2016 election. Those payments were in exchange for silence about her alleged affair with Trump. And while no witness is perfect, we know that. Cohen is a special brand of lying like your pants are on fire. And the judge in the case against Trump has refused to put a gag order on Cohen, the one who has posted hours of social media content about former President Trump and the trial. Can't stop talking about it. The judge said, well, maybe he could talk a little less this weekend. He said that on Friday. Yeah. Fox News analyst Greg Jarrett, an attorney himself, says Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg is relying on a shaky star.
He's what I call a Pinocchio witness, a disgraced, disbarred, convicted perjurer, went to prison for lying to banks, lying to Congress, lying to everybody. He's still lying. He recently admitted that he lied in court when he copped his guilty plea, and the angry federal judge called him a serial perjurer, which of course he is. Yet Alvin Bragg has invested his entire case on a guy with zero credibility. You'd have to be either desperate, I think, or deeply unethical to do that.
Well, now he is face to face with the judge, jury, and his former boss. Fox News senior correspondent Eric Shawn on the story in a great way outside the New York State Supreme Court, keeping us up to date moment by moment. Eric.
Hi, Harris. It is a tense and electric day here at Manhattan Criminal Court. Just a few moments ago, Michael Cohen saying, yes, it is fair to call him former President Trump's fixer. He says he was the guy who the former president went to get things done, and that Trump was in the loop on every little detail in the Trump organization. Right now, Michael Cohen is still on the stand, haven't taken a break yet. He said his decade as Trump's lawyer was fantastic. He felt like he was, quote, on top of the world. He did say he would renegotiate contracts, challenge bills from vendors, do whatever Trump wanted, he said. That included, he said, lying for the former president at times. He tried to show he had a direct and constant line to the boss, telling him repeatedly and talking to him every single day. He is trying to show that Trump is a micromanager. The inference that those payments to Stormy Daniels and calling the checks to Cohen as legal expenses, not reimbursements that the former president signed, well, all of this would not have happened without Trump's okay. Cohen has been testifying about dealing with David Pecker. Remember him? The publisher of the National Enquirer. That's when Karen McDougal's story emerged about the alleged affair with the former president. He says that Trump told him, quote, "She's really beautiful," and, quote, "make sure it doesn't get released." The prosecutors are trying to show through this testimony that there was a concerted conspiracy between Trump, Cohen, and others to try and hide damaging claims from the public. But prosecutor Susan Hoffinger did not ask a key question, Harris. That question, why? Was it to protect the former president's family and not hurt Melania? Or, as the prosecution claims, was it all part of an effort to try and influence the presidential election? But the former president, of course, has been under a gag order. He doesn't like that at all. He has not been able to talk about or attack Michael Cohen, but he did let loose on Cohen at the last state trial, pointing out that Cohen is a convicted felon and a liar.
We have records, and they talk about bookkeeping. The only thing down in the bookkeeping is that we call a legal expense a legal expense. We don't call it a construction expense. We don't say for concrete work. We don't say for electrical work. We pay the lawyer a legal expense.
You'd think that he'd be saying the very same thing now in court if the former president would be allowed to speak, but he can't under that gag order. So, Harris, as far as the trial is concerned, we have no witness so far directly tying the former president into any of this. Michael Cohen is the one that prosecutors have put all their chips on. The question is, will they win or crap out? Back to you.
Well, I don't gamble a lot, but I wouldn't give him my money. Good to see you. Thank you. Legal panel now. Katie Cherkasky,
In 1 mile.
this year, criminal defense attorney
Turn
and federal
left.
prosecutor formerly. Matt Whitaker, former acting attorney general under Donald Trump. Andrew Stoltman, attorney and adjunct law professor at Northwestern University. Great to see you all. Look, a little bit of what's coming out of the courtroom just to get us started. So they have asked Michael Cohen about the case involving Karen McDougal. And she's a former Playboy bunny, was paid off to quiet her story. And AMI, which owns the National Enquirer, was involved in that. All right. So in August of 2016, Cohen learned, he says, that an agreement had been finalized between AMI and Karen McDougal. David Pecker, and Howard told Cohen that she would get $150,000 and 24 articles that would have her name, and that she would be on 2 magazine covers. So talk to me, Katie, about this particular deal. It wasn't to quiet her necessarily, but to give her some good PR and to make her happy for $150,000. Why does this matter to this case?
Well, it really doesn't matter to this case and to whether these deals, which are lawful deals, it's lawful to enter into NDAs, it's lawful to enter into hush money agreements, as we've been colloquially calling that. But the question about the intent of the payment is really what the prosecution is trying to get out here. Ultimately, Michael Cohen was involved with these deals. Donald Trump was his boss. So there's no question about the fact that these deals occurred, but whether they prove up the criminality here, we still have not closed that loop whatsoever. There's no reason to think that because anybody was paid that the records indicate some sort of false statement. Paying a lawyer legal fees, even for reimbursement purposes, has not been shown to be unlawful unless the prosecution throws up an accounting expert of some sort to say that this was an inappropriate designation for those payments. Then I don't see the relevance of that.
Matt, I want to come to you on the same point. David Pecker, who was tasked, I believe, with the coverage, if you will, for the National Enquirer of these stories, told Michael Cohen, according to Cohen, that the agreement was bulletproof, the one with Karen McDougal. And Cohen took this to mean they got it. They prevented the story from being released on ABC News. Effectively, the story has now been caught. Cohen updated Trump and said it was bulletproof. Trump said it was fantastic. Great job. So again, we're talking Karen McDougal. Matt.
Well, first of all, another day of trial, another witness, and still nowhere close to allegations or evidence of illegality. I think the jury is probably at this point, 4 weeks in, very frustrated with the prosecution and the story they're telling, and hoping or looking for something to hang their hat on. But one of the things that, as we get the readouts here from people in the courtroom that the jury has access to, and that is the nonverbal.
In 0.1 miles.
The way he looks, the way he acts, the way he's testifying, and that's going to be worth as much as the words that are coming out of his mouth. And the prosecution's trying to build him up, trying to give him softball questions to have the jury have some sympathy, but they're going to destroy him on cross-examination.
So, Andrew, I want to make it clear, Karen McDougal also alleges having had an affair with Donald Trump, and during the course of this, and Matt has a great point. So we're only getting the words. We're not getting the texture of the nonverbal inside the courtroom. But this is from Carrie Urban, who is one of our legal experts here at Fox. And she has just written, Cohen says that Trump, about that Karen McDougal, said, "You handle it." She said, that's vague. That doesn't necessarily mean buy the rights to a story.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, it's just one of the many holes in this case for the prosecutors. And I guess my question, Harris, is how come they haven't called Karen McDougal yet? And I think they know, because they have a liar in Michael Cohen, they have a porno star in Stormy Daniels, and they can't put another non-credible witness up there. I think the entire house of cards, the entire case is going to slowly collapse once Mr. Cohen is testified. I know they're first-year law students who are salivating at the opportunity to cross-examine him. And, I think he's going to come off as a liar in the great pantheon of liars in this country, like an O.J. Simpson, Bernie Madoff, and even Pinocchio.
In half a mile.
Just to double back with you, Andrew,
right.
for a moment, what would you utilize, or how would you utilize Michael Cohen in this case? I mean, obviously, this is a guy who's willing to surreptitiously record his own client. Client-attorney privilege means nothing to him. So who knows what he might say?
Harris, that's it. And remember, there are two lawyers on this jury. And the one thing that lawyers hold sacrosanct is the duty of confidentiality. And I think they are going to be particularly repulsed by Mr. Cohen. I think prosecutors do have to try to get all the bad news out there early, right? There's the old prosecutor saying conspiracies crafted in hell don't have angels as witnesses. But you have a lawyer, you have a member of the bar who's a convicted liar. So I think they have cataclysmic problems on their hands.
All right. I want to remind everybody, because Andrew brought this up, the case got shortened after Stormy Daniels took the stand. In fact, the notice that we got out of the trial on Thursday was interesting, that the prosecution is no longer calling McDougal, could indicate they realized Stormy Daniels ended up on balance not being good for their case.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the jury is losing patience with these largely irrelevant witnesses, and Karen McDougal would add nothing to the idea of whether Donald Trump engaged in criminal conduct by falsifying these records. Ultimately, I think what the prosecution is getting at is that Donald Trump entered these payments as some sort of vague legal retainer, which was covering up Cohen's later federal offense, which he pled guilty to. But that's a very strange theory, because Alvin Bragg doesn't have jurisdiction to enforce federal law. And not only that, I don't even know if Cohen should have taken that deal.
0.1 mile.
In with the rest of
Turn right.
other federal offenses. That doesn't mean that they could have proven that charge against him even beyond a reasonable doubt. So that's my theory, at least.
Yeah, that's fascinating, Katie, because now you're saying maybe he shouldn't have taken that deal,
Turn
which
right.
means he didn't even have a good attorney.
He might have gotten victimized by overzealous prosecutors himself, because that was one of the many charges he was facing. But I think that's probably their theory. That doesn't mean that they can prove Donald Trump's intent with that, though, even if they had Cohen on it.
Well, but they might be able to say, if you can't even defend yourself.
I mean, that's the
I know
other
it's
thing.
probably not much of a legal argument, but it's a human one. Would you hire this guy?
Well, he was his
Probably
lawyer.
not. Yeah. All right. We're coming right back. Of course, we're going to follow everything that's going on, and we are getting it moment by moment. Our team is texting and emailing ferociously from inside. Now, one little difference today. Remember last week, the judge got very frustrated by a photographer who walked and went to the wrong spot and could see people that he wasn't supposed to capture with his camera. And the judge said no more cameras in the newsroom, or rather in the courtroom, forgive me. But today we did get a picture, so that has softened a little bit. I don't know if we'll get further than that as the day goes on, but as soon as the former president walks out to those, what I call the baby gates of justice, out front, when he gets there, We'll take him live if he makes a comment. Sometimes during the day, the breaks are so short, he'll just kind of do a fist bump and a wave. But we're all over it. Straight ahead more. Stay close. Now with breaking news from the trial, that historic trial of a former president on trial in New York City. And just in, Michael Cohen has just testified about a conversation he secretly recorded. Remember, I told you, client-attorney privilege out the window with this guy. They just played that recording, according to our team inside the courtroom. It's remarkable. This is from one of our producers saying it's remarkable that a lawyer would tape his client and then take it to a magazine publisher to, according to Cohen, prove Trump would pay him and ensure his loyalty. Seems like an obvious violation of the rules of professional responsibility, attorney-client privilege, etc. Matt Whitaker. So they're going to hear these tapes. What do you make of it?
Well, I mean, obviously, I agree with everything you just said about the attorney-client privilege and what Michael Cohen would do. But remember, he's talked a lot about this case. He's talked a lot about the facts of this case. He's done interviews, to your point, with magazines. He went in front of Congress and lied, got convicted. There's so many times he's told this story. And now the prosecution really, I think, is expecting him to say more than he's ever said. And I think that's very dangerous because the jury, it'll fall right into the hands of, are you lying then or are you lying now? And I just don't think he's going to be credible once they get done with him. But, this is distracting us from so many other important issues, like the insecure border that the FBI director has said has caused the most dangerous threat environment since 9/11. It's just really despicable.
All right, you tip a little bit to politics there, so I want to bring in Fox News contributor Tammy Bruce.
In 1 mile, turn left.
This is a lot to take in, and the fact that Donald Trump, Tammy, had an actual representative in his orbit who would surreptitiously record him, that is the height of betrayal.
It is, and I think that this is it's fascinating that the Democrats and the left, people who hate Trump, expected this to be really their campaign, kind of highlighting what a bad guy Trump is, and it just highlights the point for Trump's candidacy and the reason he's successful and the reason the people of America see him, especially the 100,000 in New Jersey a couple days ago, why they really support Trump, because this is a demonstration of the corruption in general, the people that are being relied upon, the nature of the prosecution itself,
In
people who
0.1
betray
mile,
and cheat and lie,
turn
and all
left.
brought together in a very bizarre, ironic effort to try to point the finger at Donald Trump. And I think that this is why, when they thought that this would be something that would suck support away from Trump and his campaign, but this is the Democratic campaign, and Americans don't like it. I don't think the jury will like it. I believe that there are 2 lawyers on this jury who really do understand what they're attempting to do here. I also think it's quite cynical for the prosecution. I believe in part they thought that the jury would do as they're told. That's what they expect from leftists. That's what they expect from their own base at this point, that people will deliver what based on emotion, based on revenge or whatever else. And that, I think, is also unfortunate and reveals a kind of shallowness and corruption of the left, of the Democrat Party, of New York officials in general. So President Trump is really highlighting here, by sitting there and by being persecuted, the entire point of what his argument was with now both of his campaigns.
Okay, we're now getting a readout of what's happening inside the courtroom. Tammy, thank you. Please stay with us. So these are exhibits 246 and 248. They are the recording of conversations and the transcript. So you've got 246 recording, 248 the transcript. I want to try to take you inside the courtroom as much as we can without video at this point and limited pictures, but at least we maybe might get another picture today. Michael Cohen confirms it's his voice, it's Trump's voice, and it's Ronna Graff's voice, office staff. Cohen confirms that he walked into Trump's office, Trump was on the phone, and the phone recorded parts of the call. Conversation about a piece of property in Charleston and divorce papers. The attorney then says, play the recording. And you can hear Trump say, "Let me know what's happening, okay?" This is on the recording. "Maybe because of this, it would be better if you didn't go," and then it must be inaudible, but the next words are "such blank blank, bull blank." And I think this goes away quickly, probably better than the Charleston thing. You can then hear Cohen say, "Great call." And then Cohen says, also, "We got served from the New York Times unsealing divorce papers with all of that information for our friend David." Maybe David Pecker. I'm looking at Katie across the table here. "I've spoken to Alan Weisselberg. I'm all over that when it comes to the financing," Trump says. What financing? So you've got Cohen telling him what he's going to do, and then Trump says, "What financing?" Cohen confirms the first 2 minutes were not related to Karen McDougal. Replaying the call for the court, Cohen says, "Our friend David referred to Pecker and they needed to open an LLC to be the owner of what David was referencing in order to have separation, keeping it away from Trump for privacy purposed and for the benefit of Trump." Katie, this is a lot to take in too.
Well, I'm still unclear why that is criminal. Michael Cohen was his attorney at the time. He's obviously handling many matters for President Trump. And in terms of the decisions about how things are paid and financed, these are all lawful deals. That has been established. At the end of the day, we have to get back to the basics here. The charges against Trump are that he falsified business records with an intent to aid or conceal the commission of another offense. But how are these false? People are allowed to pay their lawyers back later for something that they did. I'm really unclear what the purpose of that is, aside from showing that Michael Cohen was doing some sort of work for Donald Trump. Why would Donald Trump think that that was unlawful at the time? They have to close the loop on that if they want to make that allegation.
Well, look, Andrew, I want to be careful not to call everybody shady, but I did think that this is interesting. So Cohen at one point just said they couldn't use Pecker's full name, I guess in the phone conversation or the documents in this, because it wasn't necessary and Trump knew who they were referencing. Well, I also read a little bit earlier, maybe 10 minutes ago, that they didn't use David Pecker as much by name in documents because he was trying to become the CEO of Time Inc. Look, I'm not going to call everybody shady, but that sounds a little shady.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, Harris. There's so many landmines in this case. I think this is a reason why Cyrus Vance, who was the predecessor to Alvin Bragg, who's no fan of Donald Trump, decided not to bring these charges. You are introducing a lot of superfluous, irrelevant stuff to try to make innocent things look nefarious. And I think that's, problem number 836 in this case.
Look, we just saw the former president of the United States walk out, Donald Trump. He did not stop to speak. It's going to be about 10 or 15 minutes, as these early ones usually are. We're going to take a quick commercial break and come right back. We're uploading them into our system so we can play those out. I mean, really, what kind of an attorney records his client? What kind of an attorney records his client? So Michael Cohen's dirty work of recording his client, former President Donald Trump, we will play on the air momentarily. I want to bring in our lawyers again, Katie Trukowski, Matt Whitaker, Andrew Stoltman, and standing by, Tammy Bruce is with us as well today, which is fabulous. We can get into the politics. Moment by moment, I just want to play this. Cohen says he handled matters that concerned Trump, quote, end quote, whatever he wanted. Cohen says that he was presented with an opportunity that he would bring it to Trump immediately. Tammy, we have talked about the loyalty that this former president exacts from people around him. Michael Cohen didn't get that message.
Yes, and what's interesting here, and I don't not heard anybody speak about this, but Cohen's existence, he's almost like the perfect useful idiot when it comes to the government and the FBI. Cohen's existence itself, he has testified that he did a variety of things for Trump, and that it was beyond, before and after the election, etc. So this, in and of itself, shows that this was, you're having to, figure out or be psychic to figure out what the intention of Donald Trump was. you can see that this didn't just start to begin to happen during the election, that this was the way he did business. And again, as your experts, your lawyers have noted, none of this is illegal. So you've got a man, his very existence in his own testimony shows that the things that were happened to happen because of women coming forward during an election was the way that things were always handled, regardless, when there was never an election before for President Trump, and yet he would handle things in a similar way because he had the means with which to do so. And people expected then to there be some kind of riches of a response. So I think that is important, and perhaps the jury sees that, is because there doesn't seem to be any other way to determine what was the intention of these actions. Well, you can look at, I think as we do in legal cases, I'm not a lawyer, but you look at the behavior. And if this is specific to this dynamic, or if it was the habit of doing business no matter what the environment was.
I want to get to what the liberal media are doing now, because they played a role almost immediately after Stormy Daniels testified. And even the liberal media, some in the legacy that have been here forever and call themselves fair, but then reported the Russia hoax and didn't apologize, just sort of very quietly took it back. Kind of, sort of. Even the liberal media now are admitting that Trump's New York criminal trial seems to be lacking some solid reasoning. Watch this.
What he did wrong and apologize. The trials against him keep him in the spotlight, infuriate his base, who sees him as a martyr, and even may serve to make him the object of some sympathy among people in general who believe that his prosecutors are politically motivated. This happens to be true, in my opinion. I doubt the New York indictment would have been brought against a defendant whose name was not Donald Trump.
Ooh, a little bit of honesty there for Reed Zakaria. Katie, what's your take on that?
Well, I think that's very credible. I think that it's pretty clear to any attorneys or anybody that's been through the criminal justice process that this case is baseless. They have not presented any evidence. Alvin Bragg and Michael Cohen had both said that the case did not rely upon Michael Cohen, but now he's one of the last witnesses here, and he's going to have to present some evidence of criminality, but they don't have it, and it's really quite an embarrassment for the legal system.
The feds passed on this. Why?
Well, that's exactly the big question here. Not only the feds, the FEC determined that there was no action to be taken for the alleged campaign finance violations because this case is not provable. There's no criminality that they can prove. And we've seen that play out in real time now, and Alvin Bragg's holding the bag.
Matthew Whitaker, I want to come to you with a point that I was just reading about from the transcripts inside the courtroom today. So Cohen says he reported directly to Trump. And I also want to talk to you, Matt, because you were in the Trump orbit. You were acting director, acting attorney general for our nation. So you'll know a little bit about maybe some people around the president and how thirsty some people can get. He wanted to have that be the case. When he elected to take the position, it was clear that he was reporting just to Trump. So that's a bit of access to power there, I would imagine. Cohen says that Trump would ask him to renegotiate bills. For example, a law firm would send an invoice. Trump didn't believe the invoice was fair or justified, so he'd give Cohen the task of renegotiating the bill. I mean, this was previous to the presidency, but I would imagine you saw all sorts of people around the president who might, get drunk on some power. Is there any way to know exactly what Michael Cohen was doing to hold the former president's feet to the fire? Sounds like he had full reign.
Yeah. And I think there's a couple key points to your pointing all that out. And that is that one, Michael Cohen has said that he wanted to be attorney general or White House counsel and didn't get that. And he was very disappointed and almost angry. Not qualified, I might add, but certainly angry. And then second, when he didn't get a pardon, that kind of changed everything for Michael Cohen. And so I think he has been had an axe to grind. That will come out certainly, if not on direct, then on cross. But a lot of people are saying there's no crime, there's been no facts that allege a crime. And remember, it's not just showing that Donald Trump falsified business records. He had to do it intentionally to cover up another crime and not just have the effect of covering up another crime. And I think that's a place where the prosecution's not going to be able to get to in the Southern District of New York. Prosecutor Michael Cohen, who added this really superfluous superfluous FEC violation, which I disagreed with at the time when I was Attorney General. They are the ones that didn't prosecute Donald Trump, and for good reason, because Michael Cohen is your only witness that can give you the facts necessary to prove this. And
Excuse me 1 second. We just saw the former president, Donald Trump, walk in. He gave a thumbs up there. They're going back in. This was a short break. So shortly from now, excuse me, Matt, they'll resume the trial. Michael Cohen, as far as we know, is still on the stand, and we have the recording. So we're gonna tee that up next, but I want you to finish your thought, Matt.
No, my only point is this throwaway Southern District charge against Michael Cohen was really used to politically damage by the Southern District of New York, the president at the time. It was done in sort of at the last second, right before his plea was going to be made public and he was going to go into court and plead, and it added nothing to his sentence. So it was completely superfluous to the underlying case against Michael Cohen and really his frauds and lying.
Yeah, and it set him up to be in a frenzy when he had to defend himself, Michael Cohen. And it finds him in a position today. It's interesting. I think Tammy called him a useful idiot in the case by the prosecution. I do want to play Exhibit 246, and it is the recording that Michael Cohen, shady as it was, it is a one-party state, but he did not let his client know he was recording him. We have that recording. Let's listen together.
Correct. So I'm all over that. And I spoke to Alan about it when it comes time for the financing, which will be...
Listen, what financing?
We'll have to pay you. So
pay the cash.
No. I got...
Andrew, that little bit that we just heard, we don't have everything that was said in court, but as we get it, we're going to play it. Your thoughts?
Yeah, that creates an inference that Trump really doesn't know what Michael Cohen is talking about, number one. Number two, it makes Michael Cohen look even more repugnant and the reptilian creature that he is. And remember, Harris, if this jury thinks that any payment was made to simply cover up his affair so his wife wouldn't get upset, that's game, set, and match for Donald Trump and his defense team. That means no crime. So it's not just the lack of credibility, but you got to prove the intent. And let's say this jury accepts what Michael Cohen says. I find that hard to believe. Prosecutors still cannot prove the intent that Donald Trump had to commit this alleged crime.
Andrew, I also get something else from that recording. Can we hit it one more time? I'm going to ask my team. It's relatively short, the bit that we have gotten in so far. Let's listen.
Correct. So I'm all over that. And I spoke to Alan about it when it comes time for the financing, which will be...
Listen, what financing?
We'll have to pay you. So
pay the cash.
No. I got...
So, Andrew, this is someone recording his client, but also advising his client and getting paid to advise his client. So when his client doesn't understand, wait a minute, what are you talking about? He tells his client, no, we're going to do it my way. He's got an idea of how they're going to take...
Ministers, this is a political witch hunt, and nobody's ever seen anything like it. And I tell you what, the appellate division and the judges should step in, because what this judge is getting away with is disgraceful. Including the fact that we have thousands of people, we have 100,000 people in New Jersey. They would like to show their support.
John, is it possible that the appellate division would step in here? I mean, that seems highly unusual, but it's not totally out of the question, is it?
Dana, I think it's unlikely. I think what the court's going to do is let Judge Merchan finish out the trial, get to a verdict, and then hear all the legal issues at the same time. And part of that is because this case is so riddled with mistakes and problems that the appellate court would have to ping pong this quick case back and forth with this trial judge repeatedly if it was going to try to fix all the errors as they went on. Part of that is the trial judge's, I think, strategy here is just to steamroll through all the problems, all the ones you've been hearing about on your panel this morning with the failure to find any kind of legal crimes that had been committed, the failure to connect what happened last week with that explosive Stormy Daniels testimony with the actual charges, the problems with ambiguity of the indictment, not even telling President Trump what the real crimes are. So I think this is going to have to wait for appellate review. before it could be fixed. Maybe Judge Merchan will come to his senses and acquit Trump before they even have to put on a defense.
I don't think so. I just had to ask in case. The president brings it up. I like to ask a smart person about it, and that would be you today.
Cohen is now describing how they communicated with each other. He says Trump never had an email address. Cohen says Trump made comments about people, quote, getting in trouble or gone down as a direct result of using emails because prosecutors could follow the paper trail. So that's Cohen's.
Not wrong.
As we have seen time and time again. Jonathan Turley, jump on back in here because it seems pretty straightforward now. Like the trial's been clarified. And it's been clarified to this point. It's Cohen's word against everybody else. Do you see it that way?
Well, we've already learned a couple of things. One is that a vortex did not open up the minute Cohen took the oath, and have the entire courtroom disappear into the netherworld. So we can check that off because the fact that Cohen is taking yet another oath itself was quite an attraction. And obviously he's going to get Cuisinarted on cross-examination. But it was really interesting before his testimony to watch this effort to get in the agreement of the accountant. That was such an obvious and dishonest move by the prosecutors. You have to wonder whether this judge is having second thoughts about his failure to stop this case, or at least force the prosecution to be clear about it. There's nothing stopping the prosecutor from calling that accountant. So the introduction of that agreement was clearly intended to suggest to the jury that they have some smoking gun evidence, but because of this agreement, they can't present it. That's entirely untrue. And so Merchant was right to say, I'm not going to let you do that. But it goes to how this is a Potemkin village of a case. They're proving stuff that's not in evidence while leaving suggestions of stuff that is in evidence with the jury. So the thing to keep in mind is, when the prosecution wraps up its case, the defense will stand up and make a standard motion for a directed verdict to say that there's insufficient evidence to support a crime in this case. That's an extremely powerful argument because you've seen we're still debating what that crime is. Even on this network, you have people disagreeing as to what the theory of this case is, and the prosecution is about to wrap. Now, what the prosecution is worried about is that even Judge Merchant may just say, you know what, I gave you a shot and you didn't sink it, and so I'm going to direct this verdict. I'm going to issue an acquittal. The way they're going to get around that is to just get Cohen to say, this happened, that he intentionally wanted me to put down, or wanted this to be a legal expense. He intentionally was committing fraud. He was trying to conceal campaign violations. Even though very few people on earth would believe Michael Cohen, the prosecutors will then argue to the judge, that is a credibility question, Judge, and you need to let this go to the jury. Whether you believe him or not, that is a fact question for the jury. That is their entire strategy. And so as unbelievable as Cohen may be, I don't think the prosecutors think he will be believable. They just want him to check a box.
Wow. So you're just a quick follow on that. You're arguing that the judge is having second thoughts about previous decisions that have been made in this case. And I would just add to that, Jonathan, it came from the bench on Friday afternoon when the judge told the state to tell Michael Cohen to stop talking. And that was after all the TikToks came out, all the tweets, et cetera, et cetera. And you're making a case now that the judge thinks they may have gone too far?
No, I'm not saying that the judge is having second thoughts. He might be. I can't imagine that any competent lawyer at this point would not be embarrassed by what has happened in this courtroom. This is an utter disgrace that this case has gotten this far. And I would hope that he would have second thoughts. But keep in mind, when he told the prosecutors, can you tell Michael Cohen to cut it out, stop the antics? I got to tell you, I was not one of those complimenting the judge. Why wouldn't you do that at the beginning of the trial? You were doing that the weekend before he testified. This guy has been out there with a three-ring circus going on, and you haven't said a thing. And then suddenly said, it'd be nice if we can go through the weekend without him trolling for dollars on TikTok.
So I want to call for this other soundbite from President Trump and control room. Is like call for number 2 on that sheet, where he talks about something Jonathan just said, and get Andy's take on this. Watch here. We have that. Okay, they're working on getting it. So I'll set it up beforehand, which is basically that he talks about the innocence, the rule of law, etc. But the other thing is, Andy, that the prosecution said something last week that was kind of music to my ears, frankly, which is that they think that their case, that they might be able to rest their case this week. Okay, then we could all move on and see what's going to happen next. But here's what President Trump said about declaring his innocence and that this is a sham trial.
Police reported ahead. Notice any apprehension in your body. And with each breath, invites a sense of calm.
I should be out campaigning now instead of sitting in a very cold courthouse all day long. This is a Biden prosecution. It's election interference at a level that nobody in this country has ever seen before. This is for third world countries, not for the USA.
Andy, your thoughts in terms of the integrity of the prosecution's office, like in question, certainly. I mean, I was even just reading a headline in Newsweek saying that Alvin Bragg has not even come close to proving what he alleged.
Well, that's part of why he wasn't clear about alleging it, Dana. What's insidious about this is I want people to understand Bragg is a very smart guy. He is not incompetent. It's not that he doesn't know what he was doing. He was a top prosecutor for New York State. He was a prosecutor in my old office, the U.S. Attorney's Office in the Southern District of New York. He knows the stuff he's doing here is improper. This is a completely political case. And he hit the jackpot with Judge Merchan. I would like to believe, as Jonathan was suggesting, that maybe he's having second thoughts. But every time I start to give into that idea, a little birdie on my shoulder says, if his daughter is making tons of money as a progressive activist who does campaign work for top Democrats who define themselves by their loathing of Donald Trump, does he want to be the judge who throws out the case against Trump? I just don't see it.
I don't. As a black woman, I would say, like, for citizens, and as a black woman, I would be fearful under presidency.
I can't even begin to list the reasons. It's that extensive. Can I get 3 of them?
If anything, Bernie, come out of retirement. AOC, let's do this. Let's get in the game.
I'm here at Harvard University. Harvard University is one of the most prestigious universities here in the United States of America. The average cost of tuition here is up to $75,000, and these students should be some of the smartest kids in the world here. So today we're going to be asking them who they're going to be voting for in 2024. Right now, it looks like we have an election between Donald Trump, Joe Biden, and we may have a few outsiders such as RFK Jr. This is an election special here on my channel that we'll be doing up until the election time. So if you want to see more of these, subscribe. But now we're going to go ask students who they're going to be voting for in 2024. Who will you be voting for?
We'll have to wait and see. It's a little down the line.
Okay.
Just kidding. I'm voting for Biden. If it's a Biden-Trump matchup, then I'd be voting for Biden. Yeah.
What would make you want to vote for Joe Biden versus a person like Donald Trump?
I can't even begin to list the reasons. It's that extensive.
Can I get 3 of them?
Sure. He aligns with my values more. He's more pro-democracy, and I think he's a better person.
Okay. And with policies, anything like that?
He aligns with my policies generally across the board.
What are your policies?
All right, this is where we're hitting past the minute point. I gotta run.
We got like
sorry.
10 more seconds.
All right, I'm sorry, but I'm cutting this short. I gotta.
Who do you think would be best to become the future leader of America in this year and with elections?
In terms of this election, I will be personally voting for Joe Biden.
And why so?
I think in terms of just keeping the rule of law and the state of our constitutional democracy, he's the best option.
What do you guys think about the current state of America?
Am I allowed to swear on here?
Yep.
It's dog shit. America's completely shit right now. I ain't gonna lie. Like, low key, I'm trying to go to Europe, probably move to the Netherlands or something. Either way, everything's just going to shit at this point.
Who will you be voting for in 2024?
Respectfully, I'm not voting.
You're not gonna be voting?
I will remain neutral.
Who would you think would be better to help America, Donald Trump or Joe Biden?
Like I said, I remain neutral. I got no opinion on the matter.
But you say you want to like leave United States, so if we can make it better, who do you think can make it better?
Honestly, I have zero idea on that topic.
And what about you, man? Who do you think will make the country better?
Personally, I would think Mr. Donald Trump himself. It seems like people only like him just because, or people only dislike him just because he'll like say like a thing or two, like that people like think is like pretty rude. But I mean, besides that, I feel like he ran the country a little more better than Joe Biden.
And what do the majority of the kids here in Harvard believe in?
I mean, most of them are lean towards the left.
And who will you be voting for?
I don't feel comfortable disclosing that information, if that's okay.
And who do you think the majority of these kids are going to be voting for here at Harvard?
I mean, probably Democratic candidates.
So we have between Trump or Biden. Do you think they're going to be going for Biden then?
For sure, yeah.
Who are you going to be voting for?
Biden.
And why so?
Voted for him last year. I don't agree with like some of Trump's policies, so that's why.
What policies would it be that you don't agree with?
Some environmental stuff. I hated like the what was it, the Willow Act or whatever. Yeah.
What do you think about America right now?
Like the whole country?
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of a tough question. I don't know if I have like any opinion about the whole country.
Mm-hmm. What do you think about the current state of America, from protests, from elections, to inflation, to the border crisis?
Well, I feel like civic engagement and like advocacy and like protesting is a big part of our country and our history. And I feel like this is just an example of like our whole history. So.
Okay. And who do you think would be best to control the situation or get America back into control?
A spiritual revolution where people truly understand that we're all connected and that they are connected to their own bodies, because you wouldn't be able to violate the body of another person if you were connected to your own humanity.
Before you head off,
and so it's like a psychological,
take a moment to settle the mind, taking a deep breath so you can head to where you're going with ease.
And in this capitalist culture where profit is the main priority, we're not going to be able to achieve that.
Turn right.
Primarily a Christian country. Do you think more people need to start believing in Jesus and following his teachings?
Jesus is also a patriarchal story that has been co-opted by mainstream religion. A ton of white people. Yeah. His literal name was Yeshua. Like, that's not even his name, you know? It's not about institutional religious indoctrination of people trying to control them. It's about a genuine connection to like the spirit and godliness and nature and the body. Like we were just talking about this morning, this genocide couldn't happen if it wasn't for the level of true disembodiment, which is also perpetuated by the prison industrial complex, the medical industrial complex, capitalism. I mean, the whole 9 yards. People aren't in their bodies, or they wouldn't be able to pretend like this isn't happening.
Do you think there is a current leader who could potentially become president that could solve these issues?
No. It's about community. No, it's not. It's not going to be a top-down revolution. There's no savior, because in hierarchy and in the current political system, everyone will be corrupted by money.
Money is the root of all evil?
It's not money, it's capitalism. Money is just a tool. Capitalism is a psychology and a consciousness.
Would we be better underneath socialism?
Socialism is a political system. Communism is a political system. Capitalism is an economic system. So people get very confused when you talk about dismantling capitalism. That has nothing to do with communism. It has nothing to do with socialism. This is political versus economic systems. And if we want to change an economic system, then we will have the imagination to form a political system that's actually about community and supporting the planet.
And so what do you do here at Harvard?
I'm in the trades.
Here we've talked to a lot of people here at Harvard, and we're talking to people about America and the elections that are going to be coming up. And most people say that everyone here, that the majority here are left-leaning. And why do you think that is so?
It's a good question. Well, schools look more liberal. Colleges tend to be more liberal.
Who will you be voting for?
Oh, I'll be voting Democrat.
Because you will be voting Democrat? Is there anything you'd like to see change from Joe Biden if he does win?
Well, help the students out a bit more financially. I can see that as a good thing.
And coming into 2024, who will you be voting for?
2024. Biden and Kamala Harris.
And with the elections coming up here in 2024, who will you guys be supporting?
No one.
I'm going to vote because I'm going to exercise my right, but I'm not particularly excited about any of the choices.
If you had a vote today, who would you be voting for?
Unfortunately, Joe Biden again.
Joe Biden again.
Yeah.
Why do you think so many of the college students here in Boston and at Harvard want to vote for Joe Biden? We haven't heard anybody that wants to vote for Donald Trump yet.
I think there's a lot of reasons.
He's the lesser of two evils?
Yeah. I agree.
And do you guys agree with the policies of Joe Biden of open borders with all the migrants that came in here to America? What do you think about the current economy of America?
I think it's right in the pisser. Yeah, it's no good. I'm voting for Trump because of that.
So you will be voting for Donald Trump?
Of course, yeah.
And what makes you want to vote for Donald Trump versus Joe Biden? The majority of people here in Boston are all saying Joe Biden.
You know what? All the corrupt people right now hate him so bad. I think you have to vote for him. That's they hate him so bad, and they're the people, the enemy of my enemy. So,
do you think it's a sign when someone starts to get persecuted as much as Donald Trump and as much as people like Abraham Lincoln or MLK that they're actually the right guy?
Yes, exactly right. Perfect. Very well said.
And we've been talking to a lot of people here in the streets of Boston, Harvard, and a lot of them are saying they're going to be voting for Joe Biden. But do you think there's going to be a lot more people that are going to be like coming out of the closet that are secretly supporting Donald Trump here in Massachusetts?
I think that's very true. That's a true statement. I think that's very true overall.
What makes you want to vote for Donald Trump versus Joe Biden?
Like I said, I had this feeling the last administration was doing better. I think we've lost focus. He's in courts right now. We're really not focused on economy, immigration, basic jobs, just something for the people. We're in the middle of wars right now, all types of stuff going on. It just feels different.
Do you think other countries fear Joe Biden as president?
I don't think so at all. Unfortunately, no.
Think he's losing the respect of Americans and other countries while he's in office?
Yeah, I think there's a sense of weakness and stuff like that. And I don't think people want to bash him for his old age. I think people really realize they feel bad. And we have a sign of weakness all over the world and within the U.S.
Who are you guys going to be voting for in 2024?
I'm gonna have to go with Trump. Trump.
And why so?
Because who else do we have?
Y'all not trusting Biden?
I missed my stimulus check.
You missed your stimmy? What makes you guys want to vote for Donald Trump?
I feel like it wasn't better, honestly, but it was like just more comfortable when it was Trump, kind of, in a way.
What about you, man?
I like his hair. Yeah.
And what are you guys studying?
Government.
Government. What about you?
Sociology.
Sociology. All right, well, you're studying government. And studying government, who do you think would be the best person to be in the president's seat?
Oh, I'm not answering that question on the internet.
Why not? That's what you're studying, though, right?
It is what I'm studying, and I have opinions.
Okay, and what's your opinion on America right now?
America is a mess at the moment. Everybody's very polarized for a good reason. I'll say I don't want a racist in our presidency at all. So,
and what would make that person you're referring to as a racist?
Racist comments, actions, policies that they support, things that they endorse, anything like that.
And what do you guys like about Joe Biden? We've been talking to a lot of students here, and what makes you guys lean more towards Joe Biden here at Harvard?
I think it's more of a lesser of two evils type situation. I think both candidates have done a lot of very bad things, but I think in terms of trying to choose between the two candidates that are most likely going to make it to the final vote, I think that it would be a better option to choose Joe Biden just because he is a lesser of two evils.
Okay, and do you guys feel safer underneath Joe Biden, especially with the wars that are going on? Who do you think would pose as a bigger threat to other countries as president?
By bigger threat, like what do you mean?
Like people would have more fear.
As president?
Yeah, like show more respect.
As a black woman, I would say, like, for citizens and as a black woman, I would be fearful under Donald Trump's presidency. Whereas Joe Biden, I don't think that he has it out for POC people at all. I know Donald Trump has great ties with like certain major countries, and Joe Biden also has great ties with certain major countries. It really just depends on the state of the world when they are presidents.
What could Joe Biden or Donald Trump do to unify America?
Oh, that's a great question. They will both have to lean more towards the center because both of them are a little bit extreme. A little bit's an understatement. They're both very extreme at the moment, and I think Joe Biden's doing a good job of trying to lean towards the center and appeal to both sides, whereas Donald Trump is just very, like, he could have his own ideology at this point, you know what I mean? So that's the break. They both need to just lean towards the center.
What do you guys think about the current economy, and do you think there's a way that we can get down this inflation?
I honestly think the economy is in shambles. The U.S. is in trillions of dollars in debt to other countries. I think that inflation is just like an after effect of all of us being in debt. I do think that inflation will continue to go up unless we make major changes or unless we plan how we're going to pay these people back. I think that inflation will continue to go up because the U.S. really does not have the money to sustain the way we are living right now.
Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed this election special here on my channel. Please drop a like.
And we can go down the line here. But number one, I'm here for the simple reason to show support for a friend. I think this trial is absolutely ridiculous. I think it's a sham prosecution. And I think that luckily the president's supporters should know that he's actually in great spirits despite the circumstances of this. He should be out on the campaign trail. But of course he's here with this trial. Let me say something about what I've witnessed so far in my couple hours in there. First of all, Michael Cohen is the prosecution's star witness. This guy is a convicted felon who admitted in his testimony that he secretly recorded his former employer, that he only did it once allegedly, and that this was supposed to help Donald Trump. Does any reasonable, sensible person believe anything that Michael Cohen says? I don't think that they should, and I actually think that his testimony is going to hurt with any reasonable juror, and hopefully we have a few of those. I want to say two other things here very quickly. Number one, the thing that the president is prevented from saying, which is a disgrace, is that every single person involved in this prosecution is practically a Democratic political operative. The judge inside, his daughter is making millions of dollars running against Donald Trump, raising money for Donald Trump's political opponents. The number 3 person in the Department of Justice, Biden's Department of Justice, left to become a local prosecutor to go after Donald Trump. And of course, there's Alvin Bragg, a Soros-funded prosecutor who promised to go after Donald Trump and now is doing exactly that. Now look, whether you love Donald Trump, whether you like Donald Trump, or whether you're a Democrat or don't care about politics, what's going on inside that courtroom is a threat to American democracy, ladies and gentlemen. We cannot have a country where you get to prosecute your political opponents instead of persuading voters. Joe Biden's entire strategy is to try to distract from inflation at home and war overseas with this sham trial. I just want to live in a reasonable country where we try to persuade voters in our politics. We don't try to throw our political opponents in jail. So this is a disgrace, and I wanted to be here to show some support for my friend. And speaking of my friend, here's Senator Tuberville.
Thank you. Thanks, Senator Vance. Yeah, Auburn fan here. I want to reiterate the same thing. First of all, I'm disappointed in the courtroom. I'm hearing Mr. Trump, he is former President Trump. Give him some respect. I mean, that's what that place is in there. It's no respect. Here's what I'm seeing too. It is depressing. That courtroom is depressing. This is New York City, the icon of our country. And we got a courtroom that's the most depressing thing I've ever been in. Mental anguish is trying to be pushed on the Republican candidate for the President of the United States this year. That's all this is. He's been here a month. He's been here a month. I am disappointed in looking at the supposedly American citizens in that courtroom, that the DA comes in and he acts like it is his Super Bowl.
In 1 mile, turn right.
But that's what's happening in this country. Republican candidate for President of the United States is going through mental anguish in a courtroom that's very depressing. Very depressing. I'm glad to stand by President Trump. I'm a friend of his. I'm here more as a friend than backing him as candidate as president. I'm sitting there listening to a guy on the stand that they had to get out of house arrest because he lied in another court to testify in this court. He's a convicted felon. I mean, this guy, he's up there giving an acting scene, and all of a sudden he comes out and says, "Oh, I have."
In a quarter of a mile, turn right.
Man, this guy worked for President Trump. I mean, how can you be convinced by somebody that is a serial liar? I mean, there should be no reason that anybody should listen to this guy. But at the end of the day, the Democrats are trying to beat President Trump in the jury box because they can't beat him at the ballot box. That's end of story. So I'm from the South. I'm here today to represent
Turn right.
Pay my respects to what President Trump is going through. It's a tough time for him, but you saw what happened this weekend. He's got more support than ever because what they're putting him through in that class, in that courtroom. Thank you.
Why do you think it's appropriate to talk about the judge's daughter when the judge is not to talk about it?
Congresswoman Nicole Malliotakis, I represent Staten Island and Brooklyn here in New York City. I'm also here to support President Trump. The case is called the people of the state of New York versus Donald J. Trump. But the people of the state of New York know that this is a sham trial. The people of America know that it is a sham trial and it is based on a star witness that is a convicted, disbarred perjurer who lied to Congress multiple times, has admitted to lying before Congress, and has been convicted of lying. What I'll say is the people of the state of New York would wish that Alvin Bragg, the district attorney who brought this case, would focus on the actual crime that is taking place and plaguing our city. All right, we have drug smugglers that are poisoning our children. We have illegal immigrant gang members wreaking havoc in our city. We see career criminals being released over and over again. And we see a district
in 1 mile, at the roundabout, take the second exit and take a second to breathe.
Made up charge for something that's not even within his jurisdiction. That the FEC has said that there is no crime, that the DOJ has said there is no crime. And so it's truly outrageous that this is how District Attorney Alvin Bragg is choosing to use New Yorkers' tax dollars, wasting precious courtroom time on this sham trial.
I'm Iowa Attorney General Brenna Byrd, and I came all the way from Iowa to show our
in a quarter of a mile, at the roundabout, take the second exit and take a second to breathe.
He will do a great job. We need him back as our president, leading our country again. My background is as a prosecutor, and what I saw in that courtroom today is a travesty. Politics has no place in a courtroom.
At the roundabout, take the second exit. As you approach, breathe in through your nose, noticing how it feels in your nostrils as you gently breathe out.
And I'm worried for the future of our country if this is the direction that campaigns are going to take, when Biden knows that he cannot defeat President Trump. So instead, they try to charge him with all of these ridiculous things that include a star witness who's a perjurer, disbarred, convicted of lying. It tells us the state we are in this country right now when that's what's happening. What we need to do is get politics out of the courtroom and let President Trump get back on the campaign trail. Let the American people decide who the next leader of the free world will be. And politics has absolutely no place in this.
Still a little froggy, but singing awesome bass. We're checking and we're singing bass these days. Here's Dr. Phil.
We have 12 people sitting in a box in New York that are deciding a case that no 12 people in American history have ever been asked to decide. And that is, should a former president of the United States and a current candidate for president of the United States go to jail?
Jail is actually not on the line for Trump in that case against Stormy Daniels. He may be a felon, but you very rarely actually get jail time with a felony, unless the Democrats are just, if they want the photo op. It would be the worst thing for them to ever do. The only jail time that incarceration has been threatened to him so far has been over him breaking his gag orders. So, but Trump clearly is okay with going to jail because it would be great publicity. He would not get harmed, nothing. He wouldn't get shanked. He's not going to that kind of a cell with all of his Secret Servicemen around him. By the way, they can't ever remove his Secret Servicemen around him, and they're all armed. So you can't disarm a Secret Serviceman and have him still protect the president. So that whole thing, I don't think the Democrats thought that far ahead.
I don't think any American, president or otherwise, should be above the law. Absolutely do not believe that. I don't know the facts of this case, so I can't give you my opinion on whether or not Donald Trump is guilty of violating some New York law or not.
Well, I don't know the facts of this case. It doesn't stop me from giving my opinion, Dr. Phil. Get in. Where have you been, man? I'm just kidding. Dr. Phil is naive. He's still figuring this case out. And all he knows to say is he's counting on the 12 jurors. Little does he know that it's the judge, it's Alvin Bragg, that are cooking this thing, and the White House cooking this thing way upstairs before it ever gets down to this jury. It is true we only need one hung jurist, to go against the rest for this thing to get tied up. So I do believe there might be 1 in 12. There might be a 1 in 12 chance there's one good, honest person in New York. This is like the Old Testament, where they're going like, what if I can find 8 good men in Sodom? Will you not burn it down? What if I can find just one? What if I can find one honest juror in Sodom, New York? Will Trump go free? We'll find out, because if Trump gets indicted on this one, if this one goes through and he's found guilty, it is proof. They could not find one.
In 1 mile, turn right.
Jury.
I think this case took a long, long time to put together, and it seems to me that there are serious problems with this case. We're not talking about treason. We're not talking about murder. We're not talking about something that everybody agrees that if the actual crime was committed, that absolutely this person should be in jail.
In this case, there's no crime has been announced. Trump's on trial for a no crime. This is a show trial. Communist, Marxist show trial.
The debate is whether a crime has even been
in a quarter of a mile.
And I think that muddies the waters a whole lot. And so I think they've got a real tough time in finding their way through this path, and I think everything to make it clear to them what took place. I think every effort should be made to make this as clear to them as possible.
It doesn't get any clearer than that. How do you put someone on trial when they haven't even stated a crime? Or I should say, the crime that they're claiming.
In half a mile,
remember it's
turn left.
The felony that brings it up to the feds is to cover up a crime. That is to cover up his payment or whatever is the real charge. It has nothing to do with Stormy Daniels, the sex and all that. You can ignore all that. Democrats just doing their own anti-Trump campaign.
In 0.1 mile, turn left.
That he was trying to cover up, because it's not a crime to sign a non-disclosure agreement with someone.
Turn left.
I think law flows from good public policy and common sense. And I bet you that in the final analysis, this jury is going to have a conversation about, does it make common sense that what happened here is something that you would convict a president on or not?
He's talking kind of slow there, going, I think they're going to have a conversation. Yeah, they're going to have a conversation on if they're going to convict him or not. Whether if it's common sense or not, I don't know if New Yorkers even have common sense anymore. Because at least Jack Smith, Alvin Bragg, they're counting on the jurors not having common sense and not being informed and having listened to the news and being told what to think through all these screenings and gag orders instead of making their own opinion that this is a witch hunt on Donald Trump.
I think one element is, were there things done to influence an election? At one level, aren't all candidates supposed to be trying to influence the election?
Yeah, and he's kind of overplaying that influence the election thing here, because again, I don't believe that's the primary problem with Trump on this New York case, that he's trying to influence an election. No, the cover-up money, they're saying he was trying to influenced by telling a lie about Stormy Daniels when really, for all we know, he kept those dirty details quiet because he didn't want to embarrass himself, didn't want to hurt his business, didn't want to hurt his marriage. There's all kinds of personal reasons for it. So to say that he was just trying to influence an election, again, is Democrat wishful thinking. And only a crooked, illegal jury would agree with with the prosecution on this one.
Then the question is, did they cheat to influence the election? And maybe that's what it'll boil down to.
Yeah, there's no cheating on this one. This is not about cheating at all. He might be mixing this trial up with the Fulton County one with Fonnie Willis, because that is much more so about the actual influencing elections, stealing an election, alternate electors. Same thing with the January 6th one out there with Chutkin and Jack Smith.
Well, I think it's going to come down to 12 people, and I hope they truly are being honest when they say, I can set politics aside, I can set attitude aside, I can set personal beliefs aside.
We'll know if they're being honest if they exonerate Trump. However many are on that jury, if one of them exonerates Trump, then they can't go after him. They have to get a unanimous jury on this one. And I just think it takes one good one for a hung jury. And we'll find out if one of them takes his vows seriously. I doubt it. I really doubt it. I think this is so many Democrats and such a Democrat pack difference. If they were that honest, they wouldn't be voting for Biden in the first place.
He'll vote to block the Biden tax hikes. He'll allow nothing to happen bad to our country. He's going to stop things from happening bad to our country. The Michigan auto industry will be demolished if you don't have guys like him, but you're going to have me. I'm going to save your industry, and we're going to make your industry much bigger, because we're going to put tariffs on cars that are coming into our country. I don't know if you know it. By the way, before I do with Mike, China is building some of the largest auto plants in the world along our border in Mexico, and they think they're going to take those cars and sell them into the United States and lose all your jobs in Michigan. And you ought to tell the head of the auto workers, as a union boss, he stinks, because what he's allowing to happen to you as union workers, and we're going to get 95% of the auto workers anyway. But we're going to put tariffs on those cars, and we're not going to let them sell those cars in the United States. We're not going to let it happen. Mike will be facing off against a far-left liberal lunatic named Slotkin. She's terrible. She's terrible. Not respected in Washington, laughed at, gives everything away to the opponent, very big for China. She fully supports banning gas-powered cars and trucks. She wants you by the way, especially you, somebody that's against gasoline-powered cars, you can't have them in the state. Because if you told me you want to have her, and if somebody wanted to fight me on gas-powered, then we can't make your auto industry great, because it's only going to be the hybrids and the gasoline-powered cars that are going to turn around your state. So you have no choice but to vote against her. Slotkin is also an open borders extremist who has repeatedly voted for mass amnesty. She is not, I don't think she's going to, I tell you, Mike, I think you're going to win this thing big. A vote for Slotkin is a vote to raise your taxes, kill Michigan manufacturing jobs, and flood your communities with illegal aliens and a lot of Chinese-built electric vehicles. I don't think we want them in Michigan. That's why you must vote for Mike Rogers, highly respected, no matter where he goes. Mike, come on up, Mike. Come on up. Come up here. Hi, Mike. Mike. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you for this, Mike.
Say a couple of words, yeah.
Mr. President, this crowd is fired up because they know when you get into the White House, these folks have your back too. And they know, and they've been telling America, and they're going to go door to door for you, for me, for the Republican Party, and tell the rest of our state and our country that help is on the way. Yeah. And just one last thing, Mr. President, I had a slight little lead to show that you were a little bit popular in the Republican Party. Donald Trump endorsed me. 2 days later, I was 60 points ahead of our opponents. Wow. Thank you, Mr. President. Thanks for what you're going to do. Thanks for having the courage to stand up when so many would not. Thank you, Mr. President.
We're with you all the way, man. He's going to win. He's going to win. It was an honor to endorse him, and I'll tell you, he's respected all over. He's respected by everybody. You have a rare choice there. Normally you come in
1 mile, turn left.
And highly respected in Washington, and that's what you need, especially with the car industry and all of the other things. I thought that was China. That was a loud plane. That was an old one. Those old ones are a little loud. We're also pleased to be joined